Welcome back everyone. So I've been asked to try and post a review of Counterpart. It's a very underrated series. The actor who stars in the series, J.K. Simmons, happens to be very underrated as well, even though an amazing actor. Now I did find the argument compelling because it is an amazing series, and besides that you usually do this kind of thing in order to hype the kind of series you really love. However though, the only problem over here is I did not know how to start a review for this series. I'm starting on episode 2 of season 2 of the series and I haven't reviewed anything on season 1 or the first episode of the second season. And for that reason, and because I want to build the kind of base that I could use in order to be able to review future episodes fully, I'm going to give you a very quick review of the second episode of the season. So in the spirit of not wasting any more time, and without further ado, let's get started and let's go. Number 1. In absence of source material for a TV series like this one, it's always good to have a parallel that you can draw on. And in this case, we have got Fringe. Fringe is the perfect parallel to the series. There are some similarities between this series and The Man in the High Castle, interdimensional travel and all. But in this case, with Dimension 1 being the main dimension, Dimension 2 being the dimension causing all the trouble, with the gate between both dimensions, you could only think of Fringe. The crossing doors and tunnel between the two offices of interchange on both sides, that feels very reminiscent of the crossing point on Fringe. It was, I think, through Walter Bishop's office. Hopefully I remember that correctly. Now you also need to remember here that Fringe was a great series in its own time and in its own right. It did most definitely change how things are done when it comes to the multiple dimension subgenre within the sci-fi genre in general. It has been missed since the day it was gone, and we finally got something similar to it, something really good as well. But anyway though, that was the part where I'm trying to ease into all of this, so moving on to number 2, Season 2 so far seems to be focusing more on Emily Silk rather than Howard Silk. They do seem so far like they're trying to develop the character of the original Emily. If we of course consider Dimension 1 where the story started, where most of the story of Season 1 does happen, the original dimension. But as of episode 2, they also do seem to be focusing on developing Dimension 2 Emily beyond what they did on Season 1. But that so far is only a matter of 2 episodes. We cannot really judge so far because we don't know what they're planning for the upcoming episodes. It does seem from the trailer, at least of next week's episode, that Howard is gonna be of great focus. In fact, and in the same manner, they seem to be trying to alternate between realities or dimensions. Like on episode 1 you were watching Dimension 1 and on episode 2 you are watching Dimension 2. But the truth is, if you're looking at the titles of the episodes, this was actually what was intended for only these 2 episodes. I think the episodes were more aftermath episodes considering all that happened at the very end of Season 1, speaking of the Indigo attack on Dimension 1 here. Okay, so looking at the titles of both episodes, the first episode is titled Inside Out, kind of referring to being on the inside looking out, evaluating what has happened to you at the end of Season 1, you of course being Dimension 1 here, the trouble that has come your way from Dimension 2, and looking at every piece of information you've got so far in order to be able to make a decision when it comes to that neighbor. On the other hand, the second episode is titled Outside In, so it's basically about being on the outside, on Dimension 2, looking into the problems of Dimension 1, problems that from your perspective and their perspective you're partially responsible for, and the kind of problems that you need to sort out on your side as well before you can be able to get diplomatic relationships back on track. Moving on to number 3 though, I've always loved the acting of Olivia Williams. She's a really talented actress. I do remember the very first thing I've ever watched her star in, that was The Postman like 20 years ago. I don't even remember her role being that huge, but nonetheless she was pretty remarkable. I do remember her as well starring on a lot of TV shows and movies post that point, and even though some of those roles were very minor, they were actually quite memorable still. So, to have her portraying this character on Season 1 that did seem to be very minorly developed was not really fair, was not really satisfying. But then starting this season, something changes. She's no more that minor character that they're using as a plot device to advance Howard's story and to advance his character development. Right now, she's getting fully developed, she's getting a story, and not only on one side of things, we're seeing this on both sides. Dimension 1 Emily is getting developed and she's out of her coma, and Dimension 2 Emily is getting more development than she did get on Season 1. But when it comes to Emily, there is also number 4. A question that does come to mind is why would strategy want Mira captured by Emily? Alright, you need to hold on for a minute here. In order to understand this question, we need to remember the origin story of Indigo. Now we know that Indigo was created by none other than the strategy department, a decision made by the board of directors of strategy within the Office of Interchange of Dimension 2. So acting director fired or not, replaced by Emily or not, that does not make any sense. This most definitely goes beyond the acting director, this goes to people in higher places. So unless Mira knows nothing about the fact that this Indigo situation originated in the first place out of the Office of Strategy and from their board of directors, then there is no chance in hell they're handing her to their neighbors. The only way they're gonna do that or allow that to happen is if they hand her over in a body bag. That is actually clear as well when you listen closely to what Mira tells Usman at the very end of the episode. She tells them that they are the only two remaining. That means that she kind of thinks that everyone has sold her out, that she has no more support, and that possibly even past allies might have turned against her. But all of that, as well as what Usman did, sending Howard to a black site means number 5, D2 Emily, is definitely being played over here. I mean, she does not know what strategy is up to, she does not know that strategy is heavily involved with Indigo, and she has no idea that there are people within the organization that are actually working for Indigo. She has no idea that, for starters, Usman is working for Indigo. But number 6, we did have Eli's mistake on this episode, and this kind of mistake is usually the cliché kind, the ones used to prolong the plot. So yes, at a first glance it does seem like a plot device for convenience, but it still could be something else. We know that Indigo has got deep roots inside the Office of Interchange. They've got men everywhere. So what if our itchy finger guy Eli is one of those men? What if Eli is actually working for Indigo? What if his actions on this scene were meant to give Aldus the time to make a run for it? And definitely not for plot device reasons, because he wanted to make sure that Aldus would escape. He wanted to make sure that Aldus would never get caught. But next up is number 7, D2 Emily, discovering that D1 Emily has been making trips back and forth to D2. For whatever cause and whatever reason, she has at least made one trip to D2. And obviously, as well, Aldus had her under surveillance, or Indigo in general had her under surveillance. So even if we were not willing to believe what we've heard so far about D1 Emily, I think it is pretty clear now that she is an integral piece of this entire puzzle. With that being said though, let me know in the comments down below what you thought of the first and second episodes of the season. Let me know as well if you've got any theories for what is to come on the rest of Season 2. Now if you did like this review, and I sure hope you did, make sure you drop it a much appreciated like, and while you're at it, you can always subscribe and enable notifications for my future videos, community posts, and live streams. Until the next time you tune in for another one of my reviews though, thank you so much for tuning into this one, and have a great day.